Let's start with the funny bit from Cain and Abel, because it's the first time I recognized it this time. That it says Adam and Eve, they laid together and they knew each other, as the Bible says. And Cain is born, and Adam says, "Oh, I have made a man with the help of the Lord." And you can just imagine Eve in the corner going, "Yeah, you and the Lord did a whole bunch of that work." It's like it says Eve, and then it just dismisses her outright. "Oh, look, he laid with Eve. Oh, look, the Lord and I have made a man." From where? Eve says. I didn't see that happen. I thought, anyway. The only funny part is Cain and Abel. It's a dark story. It's a dark story. It's not an easy story to speak about. It's a story that's deep in our mythological conscience as a people, but not one we talk about. Very, very rarely do we reference Cain and Abel. Every so often we might say, "Am I my brother's keeper?" But it's usually said as a joke or in a cheeky way or some quip to somebody. "My brother's keeper," just, when we're growing up as siblings or whatever. But we don't talk about Cain and Abel because it's a very dark story, a story from the Bible with murder in it. We don't read those very often in church. Cain was a vegetable grower and Abel was a shepherd. And the story would seem like God doesn't like vegetables. That's not the point of the story, but that's what happens. They both burn offerings, vegetables and sheep, to God, and God found the sheep burning pleasing to God's nostrils, I guess, and not the vegetables. Burnt cauliflower, that kind of stuff. Because of that, somehow the brothers got to know that. And it doesn't ever say how Cain and Abel knew what God was pleased with or not. But maybe Abel had a life of blessing and Cain didn't, I'm not sure. But Cain rose up against Abel, of course, and took him out into the field, probably right where the sheep are. I thought there's a real drama there. Let's go into the field. Oh, he wants to look at my sheep or something, Abel thinks. And then he is himself slaughtered, not the sheep, in the field. God punishes Cain, drives him out, and says, "No longer from the soil. It will not be easy for you to get things from the soil. The soil is drenched in Abel's blood." Cain says, "How can I go away from you? If I go places, people will kill me." What people? Other people that were created that weren't in the story. It's just all of a sudden other people. And God says, "I will mark you." You know what the mark is? The mark of Cain. It sounds like a horror film. The mark of Cain. And wherever he wanders, people go, "So there's Cain, don't touch him." Because God has promised anybody who kills Cain will get trouble from God. That's the story of Cain and Abel. I read a story once called The Story of B that reinterpreted this story in many different ways. And one of the interpretations was that this was the first story of human beings actually displaying their knowledge of life and death. Remember, God says they shouldn't eat from the tree. If they eat from the tree, they will know that they will be like us and know the difference between life and death. Meaning, have control over life and death. And here is Cain exercising that knowledge and that control and that power over life and death. Cain is the first person to decide who will live and who will die. Sadly, it's his brother. This story wasn't in the readings provided by the narrative lectionary, but we're going to start in Genesis as I did last week. That is part of the narrative lectionary. I've inserted Cain and Abel because in Saskatchewan, it is a story we should listen to, especially this month. Because far too often, we are still Cain. I wanted to tell you a story. 1993, I went as a student minister to a town called Alabama. I mentioned that last week and the weeks previous because that's where we went on our vacation this year. We went to Bella Bella because I had a wedding to do. My friend Ian was being married finally. He's 37. It's about time. He found himself a lovely, lovely woman. They've been together 8 years and they got married. In 1993, 23 years ago, I was a pup. I had a lot of hair. And by the end of Bella Bella, 4 months there as an intern, I didn't cut it at all, so I had even more hair. And I was green. I had been through 1 year of theological school. I'm a Nova Scotian by birth, a loud Gaelic kid. Don't know if you noticed. And the church decided to put me on a very, very, very far away remote island called Campbell Island, where there's one town of 1,600 First Nations people who are really, really, really quiet. And they put me there. And just to give you a sense of what it was like, there was a funeral that came along that I had to do for a baby, actually. And it was my first funeral. But not only that, I'd only ever been to 3 funerals in my whole life, and none of them had been United Church funerals. And here I was, the United Church minister. I was a student, but there was no other United Church minister in that town. My supervisor lived a plane flight away. So I was the only minister. And I had to do a funeral. I never had ever been to a United Church funeral. And my supervisor was in town just before a couple days before the service. I said, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to roll this out? And he said, what do you mean, what are we going to do? I'm leaving town. I'm flying away. I got things to do. You're the minister. And at 23, that was a wake-up. Bella Bella, British Columbia is a deep place of my heart because it is the first place I ever had my call to ministry affirmed. And a whole bunch of other parts of me affirmed. For some reason, in 4 months, which seemed like 4 years, the experience was so rich, the people of Bella Bella grabbed a hold of me, cracked me open, loved me and affirmed my call, and helped me grow and really begin some real ministry growth. And for that, I'm forever thankful. I stayed in touch with the family that had really been close to me up there, of which Ian is one of the sons. He was 14 when I was there. And do we have this up here? Yeah, there he is. Ian is a really famous, well-known mask carver and artist, Indigenous dancer, and singer. And he's known well up and down the coast, and is just a beautiful human being. Even when he was 14, he was an old man inside. He has that ability to soak up ancient culture and share it with others and teach others in a way that draws you in. And after 23 years, I got up to Bella Bella with my family, and they welcomed Deb, and they welcomed the girls in, and Deb and the girls just fell into Bella Bella like I could never have imagined, just like they'd been there before. And we joined in for 5 nights, 4.5 days of just being in rich community with each other, getting ready for this wedding. 2 days before, though, there was a big party, what we would have called a rehearsal party. And we were across the water in the marina where the white people hang out. It's a nice restaurant, great food, 50 people and some hereditary chiefs. And Ian presents me with this vest with a crest on the back that he designed. It's a moon. It's the moon. Nusi is the moon. And actually, Ian, one of his 2 indigenous names, his hereditary names, is Nusi. So Nusi, the moon, is a crest of the Reed family. Ian is a Reed from ancient times, before they ever lived in Bella Bella. And so he put that and got it sewn on this vest. And he gave me this vest. But not only that, he said to everybody gathered, today I am adopting Dave as my brother into the Celtic nation and into the Reed family. And the eldest member, the eldest chief of the Reed family, Uncle Percy, was there, and hereditary chiefs from Bella Bella were gathered in that room. And normally there would have been a big feast, but there was a number of deaths at the time, so you don't feast then. But with the right people gathered, 50 people and some chiefs there, Ian felt this was the time. Totally surprised me. And caught me, still catches my heart off guard thinking about it. But I wanted to celebrate with you this morning that while we were away, a big thing happened to me in an important place of my heart. And I was adopted in to the Celtic people and into Ian's family. And we have been brothers since he was 14. I've always felt very close that way, whether we speak or not, whether we see each other or not. And this time there was a deeply meaningful experience. And now I have my own vest. And you see it's plaid on the inside. So I said to them, I'm around. White people wear this one. Indian people this one. White people, Indians, white. Anyway, we laugh. Not many times I use the word Indian, but Ian liked that. So it depends on what crowd I'm in. I can turn it inside out. One of the most beautiful things Ian said as he gave me this vest and the hug of brothers was that this is Dave's vest, and he's now one of our people, and he can wear it whenever he wants. Because he knew I was worried about protocol and is there a right place or wrong place to wear the vest. He said, and he can wear it whenever and wherever he wants. And that was like words of blessing in my mind. The day we left Bella Bella, Colton Boushie was murdered outside of Biggar, Saskatchewan. And I connect this, and it will be connected in my life forever, because I came out of a heart space like Bella Bella and was sad to leave. And then on the news, there was something so tragic. Something that spoke so much of not relationship, and not reconciliation, and not family, and not adoption, and not love back home in Saskatchewan. Then we listened to the news, and then I just stopped listening. I didn't even know, still don't know what to do with it in my heart. The death of Colton Boushie on a farm outside of Biggar. I want to be clear about a couple things. I took law in grade 12. Grade 12 law. It's very simple law. But I know these things, and I'm not a judge and I'm not a jury. The fact is, you're not allowed to shoot people if they're on your land. It's against the law. Trespassing is not a shootable, murderable affair. You're not allowed to shoot people if you get into an argument with them. You're not allowed to shoot people if they're drunk and you're in an argument with them. You're not allowed to shoot people if they're messing up your land. You're allowed to phone the police. This is just basic law. But more than that, I wanted to point out, in case you haven't put this together yet, if I had driven onto that piece of farmland that night, inebriated or not, rowdy or not, argumentative or not, I would not have been shot dead. Nor would have Guy, nor would Kim, nor would Jack, or Louise, or any number of us settler people in this congregation. In fact, there's not a lot of places in this world where I was in an argument or a drunken brawl where I would be shot dead. I may get injured. I got a big mouth. But I would not have been shot on a piece of farmland in Saskatchewan. Because I look the way I look. The famous line from Cain and Abel. Am I my brother's keeper? I think we have it here. No. Am I my brother's keeper? Where's your brother? I don't know where he is. Am I my brother's keeper? Cain says it with such nonchalance. He says it like kind of snotty. He's just, what, am I my brother's keeper? Like, why are you asking me? You're God? I don't know. Why would I care? Right? You could just hear the seething tone in it. Am I my brother's keeper? I'm not my brother's keeper. Yes, we are. The eternal answer, people of Jesus, to this question at the beginning of our story. Am I my brother's keeper? Absolutely. We're our brother's keeper. The question is, what does that look like? And that's the question of the month in Saskatchewan. Honestly, friends, the writings on the Facebook and on other social networking sites, the words that were said in newspapers and on the radio and on the internet, those words, the things that came after, are almost worse than the death of Colton Boushie. But I'm not his mother, and I'm sure that is the most tragic thing. But afterward, the words that were said, the racial comments that erupted, have the capacity to tear our province into shreds. And the problem, as one person said on the radio the other day, was the stuff that's usually said around Coffee Row was all of a sudden said out loud and publicly. Am I my brother's keeper? You bet you we are. What would that look like now that we're here in Saskatchewan in this newer history? This history where the awful thoughts, the racial feelings that so many of us carry has come out of our mouths and out of our fingers, and somebody has displayed those for the whole world to see. You know, the premier's really, he got up and he said one good thing, like this is atrocious and we shouldn't act like this and we need to be better. But lately he's been kind of going on about, we're not the most racist province in the country. He just really wants to know us to know that everybody else is as racist as the people of Saskatchewan. And you know what? I guess fundamentally, can you measure how big racism is? Am I more racist than the people of Halifax or the people of Toronto? You can't really measure that stuff. I think we all have a great capacity for racism. But the thing that happens in Saskatchewan is because we have a very high population of one visible minority, our Indigenous sisters and brothers. Racism is acted out more in Saskatchewan than most other provinces. I grew up in Halifax, and there's a heavy racism there, and it's in another direction. So I don't know if we get into a competition who's more racist or not, and I'm not sure that helps anybody. You know, when you say Saskatoon is the highest crime rate in any city in Canada, it doesn't really help us cure it. And saying we're the most racist province in the country doesn't really help us get at that. So I understand the Premier being a little defensive, but it's useless to measure. What we need to remember is we're the province of Starlight Tours. So we shouldn't start to talk about are we racist or not as racist as other people. We should just address we are very racist in our activity in Saskatchewan. We are very racist in our actions in Saskatchewan. We are racist in our jokes, in our Coffee Row conversations. We are racist in our stares. We are racist in our policies. We are racist in our systems. Forget whether it's war or not. It's very prevalent. What does it look like to be our brother's keeper? Does that, as Christians, as kids in Sunday school, we say, you're your brother's keeper, and we learn, like, if you walk past somebody on the street who's homeless, give them some help, say a kind word, look them in the eye. Is that what being our brother's keeper is? Only when it's presented to us? When we see somebody broken down on the roadside, we stop, say, do you need help? You want to borrow my cell phone? Can I help you change your tire? Is that being a brother's keeper, just like when it's one of those easy situations in front of us? Or is being our brother's keeper, our sister's keeper, mean changing everything about the fabric of our province interculturally? Does it mean we understand that the policies of our governments, the policies of our school boards, the policies of the businesses in town, the policies of our churches, the way we act, the code we run on is broken and has, like Cain, only acted to separate, to hurt, and eventually, sometimes, sadly, to kill? Can we actually be our sister's keeper, our brother's keeper? Can we actually start to turn towards that? All the places that were broken in our society around our relationship with Indigenous peoples. We've made the list before, and I got to tell you, I don't think we've had an example in Saskatchewan in a long time as big as this one. For goodness sakes, if your friends are saying racial things about Indigenous people, stop them. If you always wondered, well, what could have hurt? We're at the Wendy's or the Thames, or at the cafe, as they say in Saskatchewan, the cafe in town. And somebody, oh, Bert, that's Bert. He's always saying stuff like that. Well, just let it go. I want you to think, what are you scared of? And I want you to remember, there's a really good example in Colton Boushie's death as to why and how those jokes finally end up hurting. There's a clear line made, because when he died, those kind of comments that we've heard so many times burst forth for all the world to see. They're directly linked. What can it hurt? Well, a kid might end up being shot on a farm someday. I want you to stop your friends and family from saying racist things in your presence. That's just one. What are you scared of in that? How would it be hard for you? Sit with that while we think about the third person in the story today. What was his name? Seth. Seth is the third child of Adam and Eve. God brings about Seth. Well, God and Adam, I guess, got Seth together. Eve sort of helped. Seth comes along, and it's Seth that the nations are built on. It's Seth that the people of God are descended from. It is Seth who holds God's promise on his shoulders. The third son, it's unheard of. Sometimes it's the first son. Usually it's the second son in biblical tradition. Isaac, Jacob. But it's the third son who begins it all. It's Seth. Friends, I want us to think today, how can we be Seth? We're not Cain. We don't want to be Cain. Oh Lord, let us not be Cain. If we're not able, how can we be Seth? How can we be the people of promise? How can we be the people that a new nation, or a new Saskatchewan, or a new Saskatoon, or a new Mayfair neighborhood, or a new Kelsey, how can we be the people of Seth that hope is built on, that reconciliation is built on, that promise is built on, that goodness and love, that being our sisters and brothers' keeper is built on? Seth, are you your brother's keeper? I sure am. Are we nervous when we stop people in their tracks? If we say, don't speak like that, don't act like that. I saw. You keep calling Indigenous people them and they, and those people. They don't like this, or they are like this. You know how dehumanizing that is? How it dismisses them? What would happen if you stopped somebody? Would you look like a goody two-shoes? Would you imagine you might seem like you're on your high horse, overly moralistic? Is that your worry? We have to know our fear so we can arrest it with God's light. So we can become like Seth, people of promise. Maybe what would happen is we'd end up looking like people who follow Jesus, the one we call Christ. Maybe so. Amen.